The door clicked shut behind me. Just a small sound, a quiet little click, but in that moment it felt like the whole world had locked me out. I was 18 years old, and the woman who had raised me for 16 years had just thrown me away on the morning of my own birthday. She gave me $50, a duffel bag, and a folded piece of paper she called my inheritance, a worthless brick shed in the middle of nowhere. That is what she said, a pile of bricks in a swamp. I stood there on the porch, the cold March rain soaking through my hoodie, and I thought my life was over. But here is the thing about life. Sometimes the door that slams in your face is the same door that pushes you towards something you were never meant to find on your own. Because inside that worthless brick shed, hidden under a workbench, covered in 50 years of dust, was a wooden box with my name on it. My father had left it there before he died, and what was inside was not just money, it was not just papers. It was 18 handwritten letters from a mother I had never known, a mother who knew she was going to die, a mother who had spent the last 18 months of her life writing to a son she would never get to watch grow up. This is a story of how I lost everything and found a family that had been waiting for me all along. It was my 18th birthday, March 12th, a Tuesday. The kind of cold grey morning where the sky cannot decide if it wants to rain or just keep threatening. The kind of morning where everything feels heavier than it should. My name is Caleb Whitman, and this is the story of the day my stepmother threw me away. She woke me up at 6:15. Not with a song, not with a card, not with a hug. Marguerite Whitman never did things like that. Not for me anyway. She woke me up with the sound of my duffel bag hitting the hallway floor outside my bedroom door. A heavy thud. Final. Deliberate. I lay there for a second listening. My heart already knew. My heart had known for weeks. Because Marguerite had been counting down to this day, the way some people count down to Christmas, or a vacation, or the end of a prison sentence. I sat up, pulled on a hoodie, came out to the kitchen. She was standing by the window, holding a mug of coffee. Not drinking it, just holding it. Staring out at the grey sky like the sky had wronged her somehow. "Sit down, Caleb." That was the first thing she said to me that morning. No happy birthday, no good morning, just sit down. I said. She turned around, and I will never forget her face. It was not angry, it was not sad, it was just blank, like she had practiced this in the mirror, like she had rehearsed every word. "You are 18 today?" "Yeah." "Your father's social security payment stopped this morning." I waited, because I knew there was more coming. There was always more coming with Marguerite. She slid a folded piece of paper across the table. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, and on top of it, she placed 5 crisp $10 bills. "That is the deed to a piece of property your father left you. The lawyer sent it over months ago." I stared at the money. I stared at the deed. I stared at her. "You are kicking me out. You are an adult now. I am not legally obligated to house you anymore." "It is my birthday, Marguerite." "I know what day it is. Dad died 2 years ago today. You picked today." She looked at me then, really looked at me, for maybe the first time in months, and her mouth did this thing, this tight little twitch, like she was trying not to smile. "Is that supposed to make me feel guilty, Caleb?" I did not answer, because what was there to say? I went back to my room. I packed the duffel bag she had already started for me. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, a toothbrush, my father's old leather wallet, a photograph of him holding me when I was a baby, my acceptance letter to the community college I would never be able to attend now, and a small wooden box my father had carved for me when I was 8. It held nothing but a couple of guitar picks and a Boy Scout merit badge, but it was his, so it was mine. That was it. That was 18 years. In a bag, I walked down the hallway, past the kitchen, past Marguerite, who was still standing at the window, pretending not to watch me leave. I opened the front door. The cold hit me like a slap. I stepped out onto the stoop, and the door clicked shut behind me. I unfolded the deed. Lot 12, Hollow Creek Road, Maple Ridge, Vermont. I had never heard of Maple Ridge. I had never heard of Hollow Creek. I had never heard my father mention a pump house. But my father had been gone for 2 years, and there were a lot of things he never got around to telling me because he did not know he was running out of time, because his heart gave out at 52 years old. In the middle of a Tuesday, in the middle of fixing a kitchen sink for a customer, Theo Whitman. That was my father's name. Theodore, officially, but nobody called him that. Theo was a carpenter, the kind of man who could look at a broken piece of furniture and see what it used to be and what it could be again. He smelled like sawdust and coffee. He had hands that were always rough and a laugh you could feel through a hug. He was my whole world. And then he was not. I walked to the bus station. By the time I got there, my fingers were numb. I bought a ticket to Maple Ridge. The man behind the glass squinted at the address and shook his head. 6-hour ride, kid. You sure? Yeah. Last stop, middle of nowhere. You got people up there? I almost laughed. People? Yeah. I lied. I've got people. The bus pulled out at 9:45. I sat in the back, by the window. I watched my town shrink behind me. The strip malls, the gas stations, the diner where my dad used to take me on Saturday mornings for pancakes and bacon, everything I knew, everything I was, disappearing. I opened my father's old wallet. I had carried it for 2 years, but I had never really gone through it. It felt too private, too final. But now I had time, 6 hours of time. I pulled out the cards, his driver's license, his library card, a punch card for a coffee shop with 7 punches out of 10. He had been 3 coffees away from a free one when he died. That broke me a little. The smallness of it, the almost... And then I found the photograph, tucked behind his license, folded in half, black and white, old, the edges soft from being touched. I unfolded it. It was my father, but young, maybe 25, standing in front of a small brick building. The roof had a chimney. There were trees behind him, and next to him was a woman, tall, slim, dark hair, pulled back. She was looking up at him, smiling, her hand on his arm. I had never seen this woman before. I had never seen this building before. But on the back of the photograph, in my father's handwriting, were 3 words. The first, home. I stared at it for the rest of the bus ride. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I just stared at her face. The face of a woman I did not know, looking up at my father like he was the only thing in the world. The bus pulled into Maple Ridge, a little after 4 in the afternoon. The sky had gone from grey to darker grey. Rain was starting to fall. Steady. The kind of rain that makes everything feel like a memory. Maple Ridge was barely a town. A gas station. A diner with a flickering sign. A post office. A small general store with a hand-painted sign that read, B's General Store. And a few houses scattered along a main street that ended where the forest began. I stood under the awning of the bus stop. My duffel bag at my feet. My hoodie soaked through. So I did the only thing I could think of. I walked into the general store. A bell jingled when I opened the door. The store smelled like wood smoke and old coffee. There was a woman behind the counter, maybe 70 years old, white hair tied back in a soft bun, a green apron with flour on it, round glasses on a chain around her neck. She was rolling out dough. She looked up when I walked in, and she smiled. It was a real smile. I had not seen a real smile in a long time. Well, hello there, honey. You look like you walked out of a river. Yes, ma'am. I am sorry. I did not mean to drip on your floor. Oh, the floor has been here 90 years. A little water will not kill it. Are you hungry? I hesitated. She did not. She came around the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, and pulled out a stool for me near the wood stove in the corner. She poured a mug of coffee from a pot that had been sitting there, and she handed it to me, with cream and sugar, without asking. Sit, warm up. My name is Beatrice, but everybody calls me B. Caleb. Caleb. She said it like she was tasting it. That is a strong name. Where are you headed, Caleb? I pulled the deed out of my pocket, soaked, wrinkled. I unfolded it on the counter. She put on her glasses. She read it, and then she stopped reading. Her hand froze over the paper. She looked up at me, and the color drained out of her face. Where did you get this? My dad. He left it to me. He died 2 years ago. Your father's name? Theo Whitman? Theodore? Bee's hand went to her mouth. She made a small sound. Not a word, just a sound. Like something breaking very softly inside her. Oh my God. Mom? Oh my God. Caleb. Honey. You stay right there. You do not move. She walked behind the counter. She picked up an old corded phone. She dialed a number she clearly knew by heart. Her hand was shaking. Eleanor. It is B. He is here. He is standing in my store right now. Theo's boy, Rosalind's boy, Caleb. He is 18 years old and he is soaking wet and he is standing in my store. You need to come. Now. Right now. She hung up. She looked at me. And her eyes were full of tears. You look exactly like her. Like who? Like your mother, honey. You look exactly like your mother. My mother. My mother died when I was a baby. That was all I knew. That was all anyone had ever told me. She got sick, she died, end of story. My father had kept her wedding photograph on the mantle and a small painted portrait in his bedroom. But he never spoke about her. Not really, not in any detail. It was like the words got stuck somewhere in his throat. And after he married Marguerite, the portrait disappeared into a closet and the wedding photograph came down off the mantle and my mother became a ghost. A shape, a name on a birth certificate. And now, this woman, this stranger, was telling me I looked exactly like her. What was her name? I asked. B stared at me. You do not know her name? My dad said it once, when I was little. I think he said Rose, but he never said it again. B put her hand over her mouth again. She closed her eyes, and a single tear ran down her cheek and into the corner of her smile. Her name was Rosalind. Rosalind Bishop. Then Rosalind Whitman. And honey, she loved you more than anything in this whole world. The bell over the door jingled. A woman walked in. She was older, maybe 72, tall, thin. Silver hair pulled back into a low bun. She wore a long wool coat the color of bark, a red scarf, sensible boots. Her face was lined, but her eyes were clear and sharp, the kind of eyes that do not miss anything. She stopped just inside the door. She looked at me, and she did not move. She did not speak. She just looked at me for a long time. Her hand came up to her chest, slowly, like she was making sure her heart was still inside it. Taleb. She said my name like she had been saying it for 18 years, like she had been waiting to say it. You do not know me, but I knew you when you were 3 weeks old. I held you in my arms. I knew your mother when she was 12 years old. We grew up 2 houses apart. She was my best friend. She was my best friend for 31 years. And honey, she would be so happy to see you standing here. So happy, you have no idea. I could not speak. I just could not. 2 years of being told I was a burden. 2 years of locked cabinets and cold dinners. 2 years of feeling like a ghost in my own house. 2 years of believing that nobody in the world was waiting for me. And now, this. A woman I had never met, saying my name like a prayer. My name is Eleanor Bishop, she said gently. And you are going to come home with me now. We are going to get you out of those wet clothes. We are going to put some food in you. And then I am going to tell you everything. She held out her hand. I looked at it, just an old woman's hand. Lined, strong, steady. But it was the first hand anyone had held out to me in 2 years. I took it. Eleanor lived a half-mile outside of town, down a gravel road that curved through pine trees. Her house was a small wooden cottage with a green door and a porch full of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. A wood stove was already going inside. The whole house smelled like cinnamon and rosemary and old books. She gave me a pair of clean clothes that had belonged to her late husband, soft flannel, a wool sweater, thick socks. She made me a bowl of chicken soup with carrots and barley, a slice of bread that was still warm from the oven, a cup of tea with honey. I ate like I had not eaten in days, because I had not really, not like this. When I finished, she got up and brought down a wooden box from a shelf near the fireplace, old, carved, inlaid with a pattern of small flowers. She set it on the table between us. "This is yours now." "What is it?" "Photographs, letters, things your mother gave me before she died. She asked me to keep them safe until you came. And so I did, for 17 years. She opened the box. On top was a photograph. A woman, holding a baby, sitting in a white wooden rocking chair. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket. The woman was looking down at the baby, not at the camera. She did not know the camera was there. She was just looking at the baby. And on her face was the most complete love I had ever seen in my life. Pure, whole, unguarded. Is that her? That is her. And that is you. You were 11 days old. I touched the photograph. I did not cry. Not yet. I just touched it. Eleanor began to talk. She talked about a girl named Rosalind who grew up 2 houses away from her. About a girl who loved horses and books and the smell of rain on hot pavement. A girl who could play the piano by ear. A girl who lost her own mother at 16 and decided right then she would never let any child in her life feel unloved, not ever. She talked about a young woman who met a young carpenter from out of state when she was 22. He had come to Maple Ridge to help build a barn for her uncle. He stayed for the summer. He stayed for the fall. He never left. They got married out on Hollow Creek, Eleanor said, on the land your grandfather had given to them as a wedding gift. There was nothing on it then, just trees and a stream and a brick well house that Theo's father had built years before. They were going to build a home there. What happened? Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Your mother got pregnant. She was so happy, Caleb. I have never seen anyone so happy. She knit you a blanket. She painted a little crib your father had built. She wrote in a journal every single day, talking to you. She paused. She took a breath. And then she got the test results. She had been feeling tired. More tired than the pregnancy should have made her. So she went to the doctor. And the test came back. It was cancer, Caleb. It was already in her bones. I could not speak. They told her she had to choose. They told her there were treatments that might save her life. But not the baby. Not you. They wanted her to terminate. Start chemotherapy. Save herself. What did she say? Eleanor looked at me, and she smiled. The saddest, most beautiful smile I have ever seen. She said no. She said her son was going to be born. She said her son was going to live. The room was completely silent. The wood stove crackled. The rain ticked against the window. You were born 2 months early, Eleanor said softly. 5 pounds, 4 ounces, loud as anything. Your father always said you were the loudest baby in the hospital. And your mother held you on her chest and she just laughed. She just laughed and laughed. How long did she live? 18 months, from the day you were born. The doctor said she would have 6. She fought for 18. Because she had things to do. She had a son to take care of. She had letters to write. Letters? Eleanor nodded. She wrote you letters. 1 for every birthday she was going to miss. She wrote 1 for your first birthday. And your second. And your 5th. And your 10th. And your 18th. All the birthdays she knew she was not going to be there for. She wrote them by hand. She put them in envelopes. She gave them to your father. Where are they? Eleanor took a slow breath. Your father kept them? He kept them somewhere very safe. He told me once before he died that he had hidden them somewhere only you would ever find them. He said he had set everything up. Where? But I already knew. In my chest. In my bones. Eleanor reached across the table. She took my hand. The pump house your stepmother called worthless. That is the place your parents got married. That is the place your father went to be alone with her memory every single summer of your life. That is where he kept everything that mattered to him. I stood up. I did not even know I was doing it. I just stood up and I picked up the deed and I started toward the door. I have to go there right now. Caleb, I have to go there now, Eleanor. Tonight. She did not argue. She just got her coat and her car keys. I will drive you to the gate. I will not go onto the land with you. That part has to be yours alone. We drove in silence. The rain had picked up. The road got narrower. The trees got taller. The asphalt turned to gravel. The gravel turned to dirt. And then Eleanor stopped. A sagging chain-link fence. A hand-painted sign barely legible. Hollow Creek Road. Lot 12. It is just through there, maybe 100 yards in. Take this flashlight. I took it. I got out of the car. The rain was cold on my face. The wind moved through the pines like a long, slow breath. I pushed through the gap in the fence. I followed the path, around tangled briars, over fallen branches, under low pine boughs. And then I saw it, through a curtain of rain, to the trees, squatting low in a small clearing. A small building, red brick, a single chimney, a rusted tin roof, a single grimy window, a heavy wooden door with a rusted padlock. The pump house. I walked toward it, slowly. I reached out. I put my hand on the cold, wet brick, and I felt my father. I cannot explain it. I cannot make it make sense, but I felt him, standing right next to me. The way he used to stand next to me when I was a little boy. Dad, I whispered. The wind moved through the trees, and I swear to you, I swear on everything I have ever loved. I heard him answer. You found it, son. I knew you would. I picked up a heavy rock from the ground. I walked to the door. I lifted the rock above my head, and I brought it down on the padlock. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 3rd strike, the rusted metal screamed and split. The padlock fell into the mud. The door swung open, and I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Dust, old machinery, something faintly metallic, the smell of a place that had been sealed for a long time. I swept the flashlight around. The pump itself, massive, cast iron, bolted to the concrete floor, covered in cobwebs. A workbench along the wall, worn smooth by hands that had used it for decades. The flashlight moved across the bench, across old tools, across rusted coffee cans, and then the beam stopped underneath the workbench, pushed back into the deep shadows, just visible. A small wooden box, old but clean, almost no dust. Someone had put it there, recently. I dropped to my knees on the cold concrete. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely hold the flashlight. I reached under the bench. I pulled the box out. It was dark walnut, carved on top, 2 simple metal clasps, heavy, and on the lid, in my father's handwriting, the letters slightly faded but still clear, were 5 words. For Caleb, my beloved son. I held the box on my lap. I could not move. I could not breathe. I undid the first clasp. It snapped open with a small metallic sound that echoed in the silence. I undid the second clasp. I lifted the lid. Inside, neatly bound, with a faded blue ribbon, was a stack of envelopes. I counted them with shaking fingers. 18, each one with my name on the front, written in a handwriting I had never seen before, but that somehow, in my bones, I already knew. The top envelope had 2 words written on it. First birthday. I picked it up, I opened it, I unfolded the letter inside. And for the first time in my entire life, for the very first time, I heard the voice of my mother. My darling Caleb, my beautiful boy, happy first birthday, my love. My darling Caleb, my beautiful boy, happy first birthday, my love. I had to stop reading because my hands were shaking too hard to hold the paper still, because my eyes had filled with tears I could not blink away, because the wind outside had picked up and the rain on the tin roof sounded like 100 small fingers tapping, asking to come in. I sat down on the cold concrete floor. I pressed my back against the workbench and I read the letter again, from the beginning. She wrote about the day I was born, about how loud I'd been, about how my father had cried, about how she had memorized every single line of my face, every fingernail, every eyelash, because she knew she did not have much time. She wrote about how she had spent every single day of my life teaching me things, even though I was too small to remember. She had whispered her favorite poems into my ear while I slept. She had played piano with me on her lap. She had told me about her father, my grandfather, a blacksmith, a man with hands like leather and a laugh like thunder. I read until the last line. Do not be afraid, Caleb, even when it is dark, even when it feels like nobody is there. I am there. I have always been there. I always will be. Love. Always. Mom. I folded the letter. I put it back in its envelope. I stared at the 17 envelopes that were left. And then I did something I cannot explain. Something that just happened. I put them all back in the box. I closed the lid because somehow I knew that if I sat there in the dark and read all 18 of them at once, I would never be the same person again. And I was not ready yet. I needed to do this slowly. With my mother. The way a person eats a meal they have been hungry for their entire life, one careful bite at a time. So I closed the box and I held it against my chest like it was a heartbeat. And I walked back through the rain to the gate where Eleanor was sitting in her station wagon, the wipers ticking slowly back and forth. She saw me coming. She got out. She did not ask. She just opened her arms. And I walked into them. I am a man now. I'm 18 years old. But I cried like a child in that woman's arms because I'd been holding it in for 16 years. She did not shush me. She did not tell me it would be okay. She just held me and whispered one thing into my hair. She would have loved you so much. I slept that night in Eleanor's spare room. A small room, twin bed, quilt made of every color, a window looking out at a pine tree, a nightlight shaped like a half moon. The box sat on the table beside the bed. I did not open it again. I just slept with my hand resting on top of it. In the morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. For a second. Just a second. I thought I was home. I thought my father was downstairs making breakfast, because that was what he used to do every single Saturday. And then I remembered he was not downstairs. He had not been downstairs for 2 years. And I was not home. I came into the kitchen. Eleanor was at the stove, flowered apron, silver hair pulled into a loose braid. She turned and smiled at me, like I'd been waking up in her kitchen for years. Morning, sweetheart. Sleep okay? Yes, Mum. You do not have to ma'am me, Caleb. Eleanor is fine. Or Ellie. Your mother called me Ellie. That name landed somewhere soft inside my chest. She put down eggs, bacon, toast, real butter, a glass of orange juice, a mug of coffee. I ate slowly, like a person who has forgotten what it is like to be fed without being made to feel guilty about it. Eleanor sat across from me, drinking her coffee, watching the snow that had started to fall just before dawn. After I finished, she folded her hands on the table. I called somebody this morning while you were still sleeping. His name is Sterling Ashford. He's a lawyer. He was your father's lawyer. He was your father's friend from college. He has been waiting for your call. For 2 years. Waiting for my call? Your father set up everything before he died. He told Sterling that the day would come when you would find your way to Maple Ridge. And when you did, Sterling was to be told. And Sterling would help you. Sterling Ashford was 78 years old. He looked like a man who had been carved out of an old oak tree. Tall, thin, white hair combed back, a grey cardigan over a white shirt. Wire-rimmed glasses, hands with knuckles like walnuts. His office was upstairs over the post office. 2 rooms, A waiting room with a hissing radiator, and his office lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves stuffed with legal volumes and yellowed folders. Sterling did not stand up when I walked in. He did not shake my hand. He just looked at me for a long, long time. And then he said, very quietly, "My God, you really do look like her." I sat down. He poured 2 cups of coffee. He pushed mine across the desk. He opened a drawer and he took out a large brown envelope. The envelope had been sealed with red wax. The wax had my father's initials pressed into it, T.W. Sterling held the envelope between his hands like a Bible. "Caleb, before we open this, I want you to understand something. Your father was the most thoughtful man I have ever known. He did not do anything by accident. Every paper in this envelope, every word he thought about for years. He came to me 3 months after he married Marguerite. 3 months. And he said to me, 'Sterling, I made a mistake, and now I have to protect my son.' I swallowed. I could not speak. Are you ready?" "Yes, sir." He broke the seal. He laid the contents out on the desk one piece at a time. A last will and testament, signed, notarized, dated 8 years ago. A trust document, establishing something called the Rosalind Bishop Whitman Trust, with me listed as the sole beneficiary. A deed to Lot 12, Hollow Creek Road, free and clear. A letter from a bank in Burlington, Vermont, confirming the existence of several accounts, with balances that made me dizzy when I tried to read them. And one more thing. A waiver, signed by Marguerite Whitman, dated 5 years before. I picked it up. I read it again. I looked at Sterling. "What is this?" Sterling allowed himself a very small smile. "That is the reason your stepmother cannot touch a single penny of what is yours." "I do not understand." "Your father, about 5 years ago, came home one day with a stack of paperwork. He told Marguerite he needed her to sign some routine forms for his business. The usual things a small business owner deals with every year, 20 pages of them. He sat her down at the kitchen table. He handed her a pen. She signed. Sterling tapped the document with one long finger. She signed this without reading it. What does it say? It says, in legal language, that Marguerite Whitman waives forever any and all claim to the property known as Lot 12 Hollow Creek Road to any funds held in trust for Caleb Whitman. I stared at him. She signed away her right to fight me without knowing it. She did. Why? Sterling looked at me over the top of his glasses. Caleb, has Marguerite ever struck you as a woman who pays close attention to anyone but herself? I almost laughed. I almost did. Sterling slid all the documents back into the envelope, except for the trust paperwork. Now, about the trust. Your father invested very carefully over many years the total value of the trust. As of last quarter, was just over $412,000. I felt the room tilt. 412,000. Yes, that cannot be right. Sterling almost smiled again. Just barely. He worked 60 hours a week his whole life. Not because he had to, because he wanted to be tired at the end of the day. Tired in the right way. He lived modestly. He invested wisely. He started the day he met your mother, and he never stopped. I sat in that chair for a long time. The radiator hissed. A truck went by on the street below. I thought about my father, the carpenter, the man who had patched my jeans with iron-on patches instead of buying new ones, the man who had cut his own hair to save $12, the man who had eaten leftovers for lunch every single day so he could pack me a hot meal for school. That man had been quietly, patiently, lovingly, stitching together a future for me the whole time. I put my face in my hands, and I cried in front of Sterling Ashford, a man I had known for 45 minutes. And he did not look away. He just poured me another cup of coffee, and he waited. I stayed in Maple Ridge. I did not decide to stay. I just did not leave. Eleanor told me I could have a spare room as long as I needed it. She said the room had been waiting for me anyway. I did not pay rent. She would not take it. I tried 3 times. She just looked at me over her glasses and said, "Caleb, I have lived in this house for 46 years. The roof works. The pipes work. I do not need your money. I need company. So, eat the dinner I am cooking and shut up about it." So I ate the dinner and shut up about it. In the mornings, I drove out to Hollow Creek. Sterling had helped me buy a truck, a used red Chevy, 22 years old, the kind of truck that has lived a real life, the kind of truck my father would have liked. I cleared brush. I tore down dead vines. I cut back the saplings. I hauled out 50 years of rotting lumber. It was the hardest physical work I had ever done. My hands blistered, then bled, then calloused, and I had never been happier, because every shovel of brush I pulled out of the ground felt like I was uncovering a piece of my parents, the path my mother had walked on her wedding day, the flat stone where they had exchanged their vows, the remains of a small garden where she had planted roses she would never see bloom. I found those rose bushes, half dead, strangled by vines, but still alive. After 17 years of nobody caring for them, I cut them back, I gave them water, I gave them new soil, and in late May, the first one bloomed. Pale pink, the color of the inside of a seashell. I sat on the ground next to that rose bush and I cried for an hour. In the evenings, I read another letter, 1 per week. Because once I read the last one, there would never be a new word from my mother again. So I rationed them, like food on a long journey. The second letter was about her favorite song, a song she said my father used to play for her on his old guitar. She told me the name of it, and she told me to find a recording of it, and to play it on my second birthday every year, even though I would not remember why. I had not played that song on my second birthday. I had been a baby. But I played it on my 18th, sitting in Eleanor's kitchen, with my phone on the table, the song coming out of the small tinny speaker, and Eleanor put down her knitting and she said, "Caleb, honey, stand up." And she took my hand and she taught me how to slow dance in the middle of her kitchen to my mother's favorite song. At 72 years old, she still knew every step because she had been at the wedding, because she had danced to this song with my mother and father. Eleanor cried. I cried, and we kept dancing. The third letter was about my father. My mother wrote, "Caleb, if you are reading this, that means your father raised you. He is the best man I have ever known. He fixes broken things. He will fix you. He will fix you 100 times if you need fixing. Lean on him, my love. He is strong enough to hold you." I read that letter, and I had to stop, because the man my mother had described was the man I remembered, down to the last detail. And he had been everything she promised for 16 years, until his heart gave out. But she did not know he would die when he was 52. She did not know I would be 16 years old and alone in a house with a woman who hated me. Or maybe she had known, in her bones, the way mothers know things before they are facts. Because there were also days I did not read a letter, days I just worked, and ate Eleanor's dinners, and drove Sterling home from his office when his arthritis was bad, and helped me unload deliveries at the general store. Maple Ridge held me, the way a good blanket holds a cold body. The town adopted me, quietly. Walter, the postmaster, started saving me magazines about woodworking. Henrietta, who ran the diner, started slipping an extra biscuit onto my plate every time. Old Marcus at the lumber yard refused to charge me full price for anything. I tried to argue with him once. He looked at me and said, "Boy, I knew your grandfather, I knew your father. You are paying my price, not yours." And then, 3 months after I arrived in Maple Ridge, the first letter came. Sterling brought it to me. He drove out to Hollow Creek. He found me in the pump house, repairing the roof. He climbed out of his car, slowly. He had a piece of paper in his hand. I saw his face. I knew immediately. Sterling. Caleb, what is it? Marguerite has filed a civil suit against you, against the trust, against the property. I climbed down. I sat on the dusty floor. On what grounds? On the grounds that she provided for you for 2 years after your father's death. She is claiming undue influence. She is claiming lack of capacity. She is throwing every legal theory at the wall and hoping one sticks. She signed the waiver. She did, which she now claims was obtained through fraud. Was it? Sterling looked at me very carefully. Caleb, your father did not commit fraud. He handed her a stack of documents. He let her sign whatever she was willing to sign without reading. That is not fraud. That is adult behavior. She had every opportunity to read every word. She chose not to. I stared at the floor. I thought about Marguerite, standing at the kitchen window, holding her cold coffee, telling me I was a burden. For 16 years. I had been a child. I had believed her. But I was not a child anymore. I looked up at Sterling. What do we do? Sterling almost smiled. But it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of an old lawyer who has been waiting a long time to use a particular piece of paper. We do exactly what your father planned for us to do. We let her come. We let her sit in a courtroom. We let a lawyer make her case. And then we hand the judge the waiver. And we go home. The case dragged through the late spring and into the summer. Marguerite came to Maple Ridge in June. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Sunny. Warm. The kind of day that smells like cut grass. I was sitting in B's General Store, drinking a Coke, eating a tuna sandwich B had made me for free. The bell over the door jingled. I looked up, and there she was. Marguerite Whitman, in a beige pantsuit, pearls, her hair done up in a way it had never been done up while I lived with her. She had spent money on that hair, a lot of money. Next to her was a thin man in a navy suit, briefcase, slick back hair, a lawyer, obviously. She did not see me at first. She walked up to the counter. She put on the gentlest, saddest face I had ever seen on her. Excuse me, I am looking for my stepson, Caleb Whitman. B did not say anything. B just slowly took off her glasses. She set them down on the counter. And she looked at Marguerite. The way you look at a stain on a tablecloth you have just noticed for the first time. Caleb is right behind you, ma'am. Marguerite turned. She saw me. For a moment, her face did not know what to do. It tried to be sad, it tried to be relieved, it tried to be loving. It could not pick one. So it just hung there, empty. Caleb, I did not stand up. I did not put down my sandwich. I just looked at her. Marguerite, honey. Oh, honey, I have missed you so much. I took another bite of my sandwich. Marguerite. We both know that is not true. The lawyer cleared his throat. Caleb, my name is Mr. Pritchard. I represent your stepmother. We were hoping we could sit down and talk about a possible resolution to this matter. My lawyer is across the street, Mr. Pritchard. Sterling Ashford. He has an office over the post office. You can speak with him. I will not be talking to my stepmother. Without him present. Marguerite's eyes filled. I have to give her credit. She really did pull tears out of somewhere. Caleb, please, I have been so worried about you. I looked at her. You had every idea where I was, Marguerite. You handed me the deed yourself. I was upset that morning. I said things I did not mean. You said them on the morning of my 18th birthday, which was also the anniversary of my father's death. You picked that day on purpose. The store was silent. You picked that day to hurt me. I know you did. And I do not understand why you ever hated me. I was just a little boy when you came into our lives. I just wanted a mother. I would have loved you. If you had let me. Marguerite stared at me. And for the first time in 16 years, I saw a flicker of something true on her face. Shame? Just a flicker. And then it was gone. My lawyer will speak to your lawyer, she said. And she turned. And she walked out of the store. And the bell jingled. And the door swung shut. B did not say anything for a long time. She just stood behind the counter. Eventually, she said, "Caleb, honey, you ate that whole sandwich without breaking eye contact. I have known you 4 months and I am officially in awe of you." And then, for the first time since my 18th birthday, I laughed. A real laugh, from deep in my chest. The mediation was scheduled for a Wednesday morning in late July. Sterling and I drove together in his grey Buick. Eleanor sat in the back seat. She had insisted on coming. She said, "Caleb, I held you when you were 11 days old. I am not letting you walk into that room without me sitting in the hallway outside." We sat in a conference room with a long table. Marguerite was on one side, with Mr. Pritchard, and a paralegal who looked about my age. We were on the other side, me, Sterling. A second lawyer Sterling had brought as backup. Marguerite did not look at me. She looked at her hands. She looked at the table. She looked anywhere but at me. Mr. Pritchard began. He gave a long speech about grief, about mistakes, about a stepmother who had done her best. He proposed a 50-50 split. Sterling did not interrupt. He just listened. When Mr. Pritchard was finished, Sterling opened a manila folder. He took out one piece of paper. He slid it across the table. He did not say anything. Mr. Pritchard picked it up. He read it. His face, slowly, drained of color. He looked at Marguerite. "Did you sign this?" Marguerite blinked. She squinted at the paper. She did not seem to recognize it. I do not know. Maybe. Theo was always making me sign things. Mr. Pritchard closed his eyes. For a long moment, he looked like a man calculating how much of his fee he was going to lose. He turned to Marguerite. "Mrs. Whitman, we need to step into the hall." They stepped into the hall. We could hear voices through the door. When they came back in, Marguerite's face was different. She did not look sad anymore. She did not look loving. She looked like what she was, a woman who had been caught. She did not look at me when she said it. "Fine, I withdraw my claim." And she stood up and she walked out of the conference room. And I never, ever saw her again. In the parking lot. Afterward, Sterling and his colleague walked ahead, talking quietly, already moving on. Eleanor took my arm. She squeezed it. "You okay, sweetheart?" I thought about it. I thought about that woman walking out of that room, out of my life for the last time. I thought about my father 5 years ago, sliding a stack of forms across the kitchen table, saying, "Honey, sign these for me, would you? While I make us some dinner." I thought about the way he had quietly, patiently, without ever raising his voice, built a wall around me, brick by brick, while she was not looking, so that on a Tuesday morning in late July, the wall would do its job, protect his son. I looked at Eleanor. I said, "I am okay, Ellie. I am better than okay." That night, after Eleanor was in bed, I sat in her kitchen alone, the wood stove ticking, the kettle warm on the back burner. I opened the wooden box. I took out the next envelope, the 8th letter, the one from my 8th birthday. I had not been ready for it yet, but after that day, after watching Marguerite walk out of that room, I felt ready. I unfolded the letter, and my mother's voice came up out of the paper, the way it always did, like she was just sitting in the chair across from me. "My darling Caleb, you are 8 years old. Big boy now. I want to tell you about your father, about something he did the day you were born, something I have never told anyone else." I leaned forward. I read every word. And by the time I got to the end, I knew with absolute certainty the hardest part was over. But the most important part, the part I would never forget for the rest of my life, was still ahead. My mother wrote about the day I was born. Not the loud part, the quiet part. After the nurses had left, after the doctors had finished, after the lights had gone low, my father had sat next to a hospital bed, holding my tiny hand in his enormous one, and he had made a promise. He had promised her, out loud, with tears running down his face, that if she did not make it, he would never let me grow up, not knowing her. He would tell me her stories. He would play her music. He would keep her alive inside me. And my mother had asked him one thing in return. Only one thing. Theo, if you ever fall in love again, if you ever marry someone else, please make sure she loves him. Because a boy who has lost his mother cannot survive a stepmother who does not love him. Promise me. He had promised. He had broken that promise. My mother knew. Somehow, from the letter, she knew that he might break it. She wrote, Caleb, I am writing this when you are 5 months old. Your father is asleep in the chair next to me. I do not know what is going to happen. I do not know who he is going to choose to love after me. But if she does not love you the way you deserve to be loved, I want you to know something. It is not because you are unlovable. It is because she is broken. And broken people break the things they touch. And that is not your fault. It will never be your fault. Do you hear me, my darling? Never your fault. I folded the letter. I held it against my chest. I sat alone in Eleanor's kitchen. And for the first time in 2 years, the shame I had been carrying, the shame I did not even know I had been carrying, lifted. It went up through the ceiling, through the roof, through the cold Vermont sky, and it was gone. I sat there for an hour, lighter, softer, stronger. A mother I had never known had reached across 18 years, and she had taken something off my shoulders that I had not been able to put down by myself. I went to bed. I slept like a child. The summer rolled on. The pump house stopped being a pump house. It started becoming something else. A workshop, a sanctuary, a place where I belonged. I scrubbed the brick walls with vinegar and a stiff brush. The grime came off in slow sheets. The brick underneath was a deep red, hand-laid, imperfect, beautiful. I scraped the unseat tin off the roof. I put down new plywood, new shingles. Sterling helped me wire the place with new outlets. An electrician from town named Hollis came out and refused payment. He just said, Your daddy built my mother's casket for free in 2008. I owe him a roll of wire and an afternoon. I learned to use a level, to plane a board, to set a pane of glass, to mitre a corner. I learned things my father had been planning to teach me when I was 30, when I was a grown man with a wife. He had never gotten to teach me those things in person, but he had written them down in the journal, which was inside the safe under the workbench floorboards. I had not opened the safe yet. I had been saving it. By mid-August, I was ready. I pulled up the floorboard. I dialed the combination. My birthday. The safe opened. Inside was a stack of bound cash, tied with twine, $60,000 in 50s and 100s. Inside was a leather-bound journal. And inside, tucked into the back of the journal, was a small square envelope, cream-colored. My name in my mother's handwriting. But this letter was different. It did not say, For Caleb, birthday, number 1. It said 3 words. For the end. I held it. I did not open it. Not yet. Because I had a feeling that this letter was the most important letter she had ever written. So I put it in my pocket and I carried it with me. Every single day, it rode in my back pocket while I framed up the new cabin next to the pump house. Following my father's plans, drawn in his careful pencil, 12 by 16 cabin, wraparound porch, sleeping loft, the plans that had been folded up and tucked away and waited for 30 years. It rode in my back pocket while I planted a vegetable garden. Following my father's instructions in the journal, he had ordered seeds, specific seeds. He had written notes about each one. It rode in my back pocket while I helped Eleanor harvest the last of her tomatoes, while I picked up Sterling on Saturday mornings and drove him to the diner for breakfast. The letter rode in my back pocket until one morning, in early September, it announced itself. The morning Eleanor took me to the cemetery. It was a Sunday. The sky was high and pale and clean. Eleanor came out to Hollow Creek. She had a small bunch of flowers in her hand, pink roses, 3 of them, from her own garden. Caleb, sweetheart, today is the day. For what? You are going to meet your mother. I sat down on the half-finished step. My legs went out from under me. I am not. Yes, you are. I am not ready, Ellie. I cannot. Honey, you have been getting ready for 6 months. You are ready. She held out her hand, the same hand she had held out to me 6 months ago in a general store on the worst day of my life. I took it. The cemetery was at the edge of Maple Ridge, on a hill, surrounded by white birches, a small wrought iron gate, a gravel path, old stones leaning gently in different directions. Eleanor knew the way, without thinking. The way you know the way to your own kitchen at night. She walked me past stones with names I did not know, past a section for veterans, past a small section for children, down a path between 2 old oak trees. And then she stopped. She stepped aside and let me see. Under a big sugar maple, just starting to turn red at the tips, was a single stone, pale grey granite, carved by hand. It said, Rosalind Bishop Whitman, beloved wife, beloved daughter, beloved friend, 1976 to 2007, mother of Caleb Whitman, loved him from before he drew his first breath. I stood there. I could not move. I read those last words once, twice, 5 times. Loved him from before he drew his first breath. Eleanor stepped up next to me. She wrote that herself before she died. She picked the stone, she picked the words. She wanted you to know. If you ever came here, the very first thing you saw on her grave was that you had been loved. I dropped to my knees on the grass in front of the stone. The pink rose I had brought was still in my hand. I laid it down at the base of the stone. I put my hand on the cold granite and I said the word I had never said out loud to another human being in my entire life. Mom, it came out as a whisper, cracked, small, but it came out and it filled the whole cemetery. I do not know how long I sat there. The sun moved across the maple tree. Eleanor sat on a small bench, a few yards away. After a long while, I took the cream-colored envelope out of my back pocket. For the end, I knew. Now, this was the end. The end of the part where I did not know her. The beginning of the part where she would be with me the whole rest of my life. I broke the seal. My darling Caleb, if you are reading this letter, it means you have made it to the last letter, the last words. I am writing this on a Tuesday in March. You are 9 months old. You are asleep on my chest right now. I can feel your little heart beating against mine. The doctors told me yesterday I have about 6 months left. They are wrong. I am going to have more than that. I can feel it. But I am writing this letter now, while I am still strong, while my hand is still steady, because I do not want to write this letter in pain. I want this letter to be clean. Just love. So here it is. Caleb, my beautiful son, when you read this, you will be a man. You will have had a life, a whole life, filled with things I cannot imagine, mornings I will not see, laughter I will not hear, tears I will not be there to wipe. I am so sorry, my love. I am so sorry I am not there. But I want you to know something. You were not a sad chapter in my life. You were not a loss. You were not a tragedy. You were the very best thing that ever happened to me. The very best. I had 31 years on this earth, and the last 2 of them were the happiest of my entire life. Because of you. You did not steal my time. You gave it shape. You made the time I had matter. And that life did not end when I did. It went on. In you, in your father, in Ellie, in B, in every person you have ever made laugh, in every person you have ever helped. I am still here, Caleb. I am in your hands. I am in the shape of your smile. I am in the way you listen when somebody is hurting. I am in the way you love. So please, do not waste this life crying for me. Live it. Live all the way. To the very last second. Build the brick well house into a home. Plant the garden. Marry someone kind. Have children if you want them. Just live. And on your hardest days, the days when you feel small, find a quiet place. Close your eyes and listen. I am there. I will always, always be there. Love, forever and ever, Mom. I read the letter twice. I folded it. I put it back in the envelope. I leaned my forehead against the cold granite. And I cried in that cemetery. Until I had nothing left. Until I was just a hollow boy. Sitting on cold grass. Under a maple tree. But here's the thing about being empty. When you are empty, you can be filled with something new. And what filled me in that moment was peace. The first peace I had ever felt. I had a mother, I had a father, I had been loved. I had always been loved. And nobody, not Marguerite, not anyone, could ever take that from me. I stood up, I touched the stone one more time. I told her I would come back every Sunday. And I walked back to where Eleanor was sitting. She did not say anything. She did not need to. I just held out my hand and she took it. And we walked back to the car together, slowly, the way two people walk who have all the time in the world. The cabin was finished in early October. I drove the last nail in myself, a handmade copper nail, from a small bag my father had left in the back of the jeweler, with a note in his careful handwriting. For the last nail in the front door, make it count. TW. I made it count. The door swung open on hinges I had sensor. Tismunter, a small front room with a wood stove, a reading chair, a handmade table I had built myself, 2 windows looking out over the meadow, a small kitchen with open shelf. Sterling had given me a set of his late wife's china. B had given me a set of cast iron pans. Eleanor had given me a quilt that her mother had made in 1962. A loft up a short flight of stairs. A simple bed. A reading lamp. A small framed photograph of my parents on their wedding day in front of the brick well house. Eleanor had given that to me. She had kept the negative for 30 years, hoping, somehow, that one day she would get to print it for me. We had the dedication on a Saturday, a small one, just the people who mattered. Eleanor came with apple pie, the kind my mother used to make. B came with 3 loaves of fresh bread, still warm. Sterling came with a bottle of cider from an orchard he had loved his whole life. Walter the postmaster came. Henrietta from the diner came. Old Marcus from the lumberyard came. Hollis the electrician came with his wife. Reverend Tilden from the small church came. We sat out on the wraparound porch. As the leaves turned bright red and orange and gold around us, we drank cider, we ate pie, we laughed. B brought out an old guitar. She handed it to Sterling. Sterling could not play a guitar. He passed it to Eleanor. Eleanor passed it to me. Can you play? A little. My dad taught me. Play us something. I held the guitar. I had not played in years. But my fingers remembered. The way fingers do. I played the song my mother and father had danced to at their wedding, the song from the second letter, the song Eleanor had taught me to slow dance to in her kitchen. The song filled the porch, and one by one, the old people who had carried me, who had fed me, who had refused to let me be alone, they paired off, and they danced on the wrap-around porch of the Brickwell house. In the late afternoon Vermont sunlight, the same porch where my parents had been married, 18 years before, almost to the day. I played until my fingers hurt. I played until the sun went down. But the cabin was not the end of the story. It was just the place where the rest of my life would begin. I started community college in January. Sustainable architecture and small-scale agriculture. 2 days a week. The other days I worked. With Marcus at the lumberyard. With Hollis on electrical jobs. with anyone in town who needed an extra pair of hands, because Sterling had told me, very gently, "Caleb, you have enough money to never work, which means you should work harder than anyone else you know. Because your father did not save all this money to make your life easy. He saved it to make sure your life was yours. So go out there and make yourself alive." So I work and I learned how a town actually runs, how a building actually stands up, how a person actually becomes useful to other people. I made friends, real friends, people my own age. A young woman named Iris who worked at the library. A young man named Ezra who had grown up on a dairy farm down the road. A whole small group of us who would gather at the diner on Friday nights to eat pancakes for dinner and laugh until we could not breathe. I learned how to be a person who is not alone. That took longer than the cabin, but it happened. The next spring, I started something I had been thinking about for a long time. I went to Sterling. I told him what I wanted to do. He listened. He took off his glasses. He cleaned them very slowly on his cardigan. He put them back on. He looked at me and he said, "Your mother would be proud of you, Caleb." I named it the Rosalind Bishop Whitman Memorial Fund, a small foundation based in Maple Ridge. Money set aside from the trust to help kids in our county, kids who had lost a parent, school supplies, winter coats, books, the kinds of things kids without parents sometimes have to go without. Eleanor agreed to chair the board. Bea agreed to serve on it. Sterling agreed to handle the legal work for free. We had 3 kids signed up by April, 6 by June, a dozen by the end of the first year. A little boy named Owen, 8 years old, lost his dad to cancer, wanted to learn to play the trumpet. We bought him a trumpet. A little girl named Sage, 10 years old, lost her mom to a car accident, wanted to go to a science camp the next state over. We sent her to science camp. A teenager named Bo, 16 years old, lost both parents in a house fire when he was 11, wanted to apply to college. We helped him with the applications. We paid his fees. 12 kids in 1 year in one small Vermont town. 12 kids who would grow up with one small steady hand, reaching out from somewhere, saying, "I see you. I see what you lost. I am here." My mother's name was on every check. Her name was on every birthday card we sent. Rosalind Bishop Whitman. Her name went out into the world. And it did good. Because she had done good. Because she had used her last 18 months not to feel sorry for herself, but to write 18 letters, to plant some rose bushes, to carve some words into a piece of granite. On the 2nd anniversary of the day Marguerite kicked me out, I stood on the porch of the brick well house. The cabin behind me, curl of smoke rising from the chimney, the garden full of vegetables, the rose bushes blooming pink and white, the pump house standing where it had stood for 120 years. I had eaten dinner with Eleanor, Bea, Sterling, Iris, Ezra, Walter, Henrietta, Marcus, Hollis. We had eaten roast chicken and biscuits and apple pie, and we had laughed and told stories. After they all left, I stayed out on the porch. The sun was setting through the maples. I had 2 letters in my hand. One was the last birthday letter from my mother, the one for my 18th, the one I had been saving. The other was a letter I had written myself, to my mother, the first letter I had ever written to her. I had been working on it for 2 years. I read my mother's last letter first. She wrote it on the day I was a year old, right before she went into the hospital for the last time. "Caleb, you are 18. You are a man. I hope someone made you a cake. I hope someone sang to you. I hope you have people, real people, not just family by blood, family by love. The way Ellie is your family, the way Bea is, the way Sterling is, I hope you have them. I hope they are sitting with you right now as you read this. If they are, hug them for me. If they are not yet, they are coming. Hold on. They are coming. I love you. Always. Mom, I folded the letter. I held it for a long time. Then I opened my own. Dear Mom, I made it. I made it through. I made it here. I made it home. I have your eyes. Ellie told me. I have your hands. I have your laugh. I have your stubborn streak. I have everything you gave me. In the 18 months, you gotta hold me. Plus everything you gave me in the 18 letters you wrote. You did your job, Mom. You did it perfectly. I want you to rest now. I am okay. I am better than okay. I am happy. I am building a life you would have liked, with people you would have loved. In a town you taught me to love before I ever knew I was being taught. And the brick well house, where you stood in your white dress on a summer day, where you said, I do, to my father. It is full of life now, just like you wanted. The garden you planted is full of vegetables. The rose bushes you put in are blooming pink and white. The porch you got married on is full of people who love each other. I did it, Mom. I built it. I am going to keep going. I am going to live a long, full life. I am going to love people well. I am going to help kids who lost what I lost. Wait for me, okay? But not too soon. I love you, Caleb. I folded my letter. I put it inside the envelope with hers. I walked down the steps, across the field, to the pump house. I opened the heavy wooden door. I stepped inside. The wooden box was on the workbench. I lifted the lid. I placed both letters inside, hers and mine. The first conversation between us that had two sides. I closed the lid. I walked back out into the evening. The sun had gone behind the trees. The sky was pink and gold and pale, pale blue. The first stars were coming out. I sat on the porch step. I thought about that gray March morning 2 years ago. The click of the door behind me. The duffel bag at my feet. The $50 in my hand. I thought about how I had stood on that stoop, 18 years old, soaking wet, sure that my life was over. And I almost laughed, because I had been right. That life, the life Marguerite had handed me, with cold dinners and locked cabinets and a stepmother who could not love me. That life had been over. The door had clicked shut, and another door, a door I had not even known existed, had opened. A door I had walked through in the cold March rain, 12 miles down a gravel road, through a sagging chain-link fence, into a small brick building in a clearing in the woods. A door my mother and father had built for me, years before I needed it. The way good parents build doors for the children they love. If you have ever felt thrown away, if you have ever stood on a stoop in the cold and watched a door close behind you, if you have ever thought that nobody was waiting for you anywhere in this world, I want you to know something. Sometimes the people who love you are people you have not met yet. Sometimes the people who love you most are people you have never seen. Sometimes love has been working on you for years, quietly, in the dark, building things, hiding things, planting things, setting up the moment you will need it, long before you have any idea. Your story is not over because someone closed a door on you. Your story might just be beginning. So walk, even in the rain, even in the dark, because there is a small brick building somewhere with your name carved into a wooden box inside it. And someone, maybe someone you have never met, has been waiting for you for a very long time. I sat on the porch until the stars came all the way out, until the moon rose over the maple trees, until the small brick well house glowed silver in the moonlight. And then I went inside and I started my life